In the previous video, what we learned about is how to make an entity relationship diagram using MySQL Workbench and the uses for decluttering and organizing with this form. In today's lesson, what we're going to be learning about is database normalization. Now, if you don't understand what database normalization is, this is a great video for you. What database normalization is the process used to organize a database into tables and columns. Now, you may think that this is pretty inherently simple. However, there are some rules that we follow when we are using SQL that make everything efficient, and it helps us minimize duplicating data and also helps us minimize our data modification issues. So when we're trying to insert or delete any types of data, we don't have to do it multiple times. We can do it one time and know that it is deleted. It also helps us simplify our queries. So when we're searching for information, it is much easier to search for information and find it. So the reason that we use these rules is because not everyone will follow the same practices. So there are three types of normalization. There's what is known as the first normal form, which is where information is stored in relational tables with each column containing atomic values with no repeating groups of columns. What it means by atomic values is that each column will have only one value and will not have multiple values within the column. And what it means by no repeating columns is that no two columns will be representing of the same type of information. Going on to the second normal form, it's the same as the first normal form, and in fact it builds upon the first normal form, except it also adds to where all the columns depend on the table's primary key. We'll get into this later in the video, but you just need to know that this allows us to split up into more tables that better define what is inside of each table. And then going on to the third normal form, it builds upon the second normal form and includes all of the same rules, except for it also adds that all of its columns are not transitively dependent on the primary key. Now, what it means to be transitively dependent means that if you have two items, A and B, and A changes and it causes a change in B, those two items are transitively dependent and must be split into two separate tables. We'll get into this later in the video. So let's just go ahead and start with the first normal form. What I have here is just an entire table with a bunch of information. So we have an ID field listing each individual row. Then we have the name, phone, city, postal code, pet 1 name, pet 1 breed, pet 2 name, and finally pet 2 breed. The first thing that you may notice is that not every single column is filled in. We can see that David has 2 pets, Rebecca has 1 pet, and Jordan has no pets. This is perfectly fine because in each column it only contains one individual item, and this follows the rule of the first normal form, meaning saying that each column must have atomic values. However, it does not follow the rule of the first normal form where there are no repeating groups of columns, because when we have pet 1 name and pet 2 name, these are repeating columns. These mean the exact same thing and are a waste of space inside of this table. So what we're going to do is apply the rule of the first normal form and split this into two tables. So once we split this into two tables, what we have is an owner's table and a pets table. And what we have done is we have the ID, name, phone, city, and postal code from the owners because all of that relates to the owner. And then we have the pet ID, pet name, pet breed, and finally the owner foreign key inside of the pets table. What this allows us to do with the owner foreign key is reference back to the owner's table. the way we do this is we just put in here the ID of the owner inside of the foreign key, and it allows us to reference the table. As you can see here, we have this line with many prongs on the end. If you remember from the last lesson, what this means is that there is a one-to-many relationship, meaning that one owner can own many pets. As you can see, the foreign key 1 inside of the pets table is known as the owner David, as you can see right here. So David owns more than one pet. Going on to the second normal form. So the second normal form, again, is the same as the first normal form, except all the columns depend on the table's primary key. So everything must be dependent on the primary key. So what we need to do here is make sure that anything that is within this table belongs in this table. So if I have my name, David, and a phone number, those obviously belong together because each person normally has their own phone number. However, if I have my name, my phone number, and my city and postal code, those might not necessarily belong together because many people can live inside of New York. I'm not the only person living inside of New York, so it's not unique to me, or in other words, it's not unique to my primary key. The same goes with the pet name and the pet breed. We can have multiple pets belonging to the, let's say, yellow lab breed. So this is not unique to the primary key and must be split into a separate table. So what we do here is we split everything into their own table. This may look hectic, but I will explain everything to you. So what we have first in the top right is the cities table. So we have a city ID, we have the city name, and then finally the city postal code. This is connected to the owners in a one-to-many relationship because many people can live inside of each of these cities. So we have simply a reference to each city by their foreign key, or their primary key as a foreign key, and that is how we're going to be referencing them. And then what we have here in this owner's pets table is how you would normally do a many-to-many relationship. So if I wanted to have many owners owning many pets, what I do is I set up a separate table where it just includes their foreign keys. And this has a one-to-many relationship to each of the separate tables. And what I could do here is instead of having simply just one, so let's say the owner ID, the foreign key is David, so David owns the pet ID of 1 and the pet ID of 2. If I wanted also for Rebecca to own the pet ID of 2, I could input that here and it would not mess anything up because I would have another reference to simply Michael, and that is completely legal because, say, if a couple owned a pet together or a couple owned many pets together, that is how a many-to-many relationship would be viewed. And then we have a one-to-many relationship with the breeds because many pets can belong to a single breed, and these are simply referenced by a foreign key. So this takes care of the second normal form where each individual column must be dependent on the primary key or must belong to the primary key. Going on to the third normal form. The third normal form saying that each column are not transitively dependent on the primary key. This means that if I change a column in the owner's table, no other column in the owner's table will change. We can see a violation of this within the cities table. For example, if I change the postal code here, it will simply change the city because each postal code has its own city and vice versa. So what we will need to do is create a new table for the postal code and city relationship. However, what we can also do here is a little trick. We simply will put the postal code foreign key inside of the owner's table, and this allows us to change the postal code within the owner's table and be able to reference any single city, because each city is still going to be referenced by each postal code, but we can change it in the owner's table and it will not affect any other table within the owner's table. So this is how you go from a simple table of one table, and then you will learn the first, second, and third normal forms to make your database more efficient, more effective, and more useful for anyone. This allows you to collaborate easier among people. Again, you can see if you were simply looking for a certain type of breed or a certain pet in their breed, you wouldn't want to have to pull up all of the information about the owners. So this makes it easier for everyone that is trying to input information or receive information from your database. I hope that this video has been helpful for you. Again, my name is David Baker, and we have been learning about database normalization. In the next video, what we're going to be learning about is DBMS. Again, this video is brought to you by creativeonlineschool.com.